Hello there and welcome back to episode, what is this, 13. Like, this is beyond what I can count with my hands, so I don't even know which episode it is. Haha, silly me. But to keep things serious, we have a lot to do today. You see, this is the Royal Academy. The historic building is here with some nice climbable vines. And then we have the gazebo, the walkway, the tower, and the arches. This is the arches and this is the tower, because this building has some custom-made arches installed on top of it. That's why it's called the arches. But things aside, we need a library. How are the students going to study from their predecessors if they don't have a library? That makes zero sense. So this building, these two buildings here, are going to become the upper and the lower library. Upper library, lower library. So these will be built according to the style here. Oh, I just realized it's 5 wide and this is 4 wide. Oh dear, I have to replan everything. But the library will soon exist. And what else will soon exist, you might ask? And that would be the museum. Because architecture is best done visually, so we needed a place to celebrate all the different architectural arches, let's say, that previous people have came up with. We need to celebrate them in one concentrated location that the students can hang out in and study in their free time. So these are very important buildings for the academy, so we're building the support system almost of the academy. So let's get into it. But first, we need to design an adaptation for the academy's arches that fits for a 4 wide surface. So without further ado, actually might be time to sleep, but let's pack some resources first. I plot my base right next to the museum because I thought that's what we would be working on, and I realized there's a thing called library. Yes, there's a lot of debug on here. It's just because there are so many cauldrons and I don't want that many leather workers. In short, that's what's happening. So I'll be getting some basalt and use my stone cutter to cut out some diorite, since we just need a rough idea of what is going on, and beyond that I think we are ready to hop in a time lapse. But first, let's do the design. So I like the tower's design, honestly, so let's go with that. So we're starting with some diorite prisms. So let's start with this. And how tall is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tall. And then we gonna get some bricks in there. So let's just introduce some bricks. So let's just get this, say, sample done, so we know what we're doing. So let's generally improvise based on that over there, but we could have this. We need a temporary block, I think, and then we can break this temporary block on. We can do this. And then we need the 4 arches, because this is too iconic to not use. And then that is pretty iconic already, but we need to do better. So since we can't use a wall in the middle, it's like this, so it lets in a lot of light. So let's go with this. So we're pretty happy with this. So it's time to hop into time-lapse mode. Oh, we also have to do the outside. Never mind. Let's go get some black stone. Okay, this area is larger than I thought, honestly. Blackstone bricks, I'm happy with that. Let's see how to figure this out. This area will be so nice after this all completes. I'm so excited, honestly. How to climb up to do this is actually a nightmare. Seriously. Out of all seriousness. These supports. Go in here. These get turned into bricks like normal. And then we want the twist here. This gets turned into a wall. And then we can do like this. And then we need a step away test. Okay, this actually looks nice. Actually, I think it's a bit jarring how the wall does not connect properly. So just for sake of connectivity, I'm going to turn it into this. I think this looks pretty nice. So let's hop into time-lapse mode now, shall we? long time lapse, we have the buildings done. So they're looking really handsome over here. Let's get up here to get a better view. And they look like this. So it's really nice. I have yet to hang the lanterns because I don't have that many lanterns readily available. But here we already have the outlining for the museum done. So there will be a gate that goes into this courtyard of sorts, and then we can display the arches along here. This will be a main display, and then this will be a secondary display. And then this large area here could be used for some research and work. And then this will be the bell tower of the museum over here. So we have another towering building right in the middle of the bridge. So that's looking fun. And this time we are going to go with the 5 wide because I think 5 wide looks a bit more grand. So the 5 wide, this is the 4 wide, the variant of the 4 wide Academy window. There's a video about the Academy window. If you're curious, watch that, please. It's a short. I'm hungry. But the 5 wide looks like this on the inside, and on the outside it looks like this. So perfect place to hang the lantern in the middle. Okay, that's actually an entrance. I got distracted. And it has a cool arch that binds it. So very cool design. We are going to continue using this for the exterior of the museum. I don't know why there's a scaffolding that's jutting out here. The grill is narrow enough that we don't need another scaffolding. Thank you. So I guess it's build time. Let's hop into another time lapse. But before that, we are almost out of diorite. Where is diorite? I have this bit and I have this bit. That's nowhere near enough diorite, so it's time to go into the mines. Out of full transparency, how do I mine diorite, you're curious? It's not by going in caves. Caves are already stripped clean of diorite, pretty much. The accessible caves are, at least. So I have a deep slate strip mine, and I'm mining, I think, 7 or 8 blocks between each tunnel. And I'm getting a bunch of deep slate, while getting diorite. So this royal area is black stone because that looks better on contrast, but deep slate has a very classy look. So deep slate is also a decent aesthetic. I will show you really quickly after unloading my belongings here. Yes, there's a beacon chilling around because why not? But the deep slate aesthetic, I will show you. If we go to the labs really quickly, it all looks dark, to be honest. Let me see if I can land here. This is the lab, and it's deep slate roof, chisel deep slate as the beam. It's looking very, let's say, elegant, because deep slate has like a lot of variants. It has more variants than blackstone. And then the labs over there is all nice and deep slate. In fact, the chisel here can actually chisel uncobbled, so silk touched deep slate, and it has this nice flower pattern that I'm using as the lab theme. So the lab is deep slate, so deep slate works. It definitely does work. So I'm happy with doing some in deep slate, which means I do not have to destroy the nether for blackstone. But I was on a very long tangent. So the thing is, we have to get more diorite. It's a bit annoying for me to do a time lapse of me mining diorite, mainly because I am in a small, confined, claustrophobic area, and it's difficult for me to post my free cam at a place because I'm like, mine some here, mine some there, it's in a cave. It's not convenient, trust me. Oh, I have a cat. Sit here, chase away the creepers, please. Please and thank you. What food do you have? I have to sell food. Nah, I'm not doing it. Yeah, that's about it. So now let's get gathering. After a long off-screen gathering session while I was on the airplane back to the States, we have gotten a lot of data, right? By that I mean a lot, like 6K or 7K kind, a lot. So we are ready to resume building. And this time we are gonna start with the museum itself. So the first step is to create the foundation because it's amplified, the ground is uneven, so let's make the foundation nice. I am gonna go with some diorite walls and I'm just gonna use stairs to give like a little slit in between so the basement is not too dark. And here's the basement. And I'm just gonna hop into a time lapse because a lot of this is pretty repetitive since I'm using the same arch structure as the academy, so there isn't too much new things, so let's enjoy the music I produced and have fun. And now that we are back with a lot more resource, it's time for us to actually implement the designs on the arches. So again, this is an architectural museum, so we're gonna have a lot of different arch styles. We will be using the famous arches inspired by first Picasso. So I'm gonna use basalt as the pedestal. So because it's 4 high, we can use basalt like this. And it's 4 wide. Okay, that is embarrassing. So that would be a classic castle window. So this would be the castle window to commemorate the castle. It's just the left one that we need to amend. And I would reasonably say that I am able to do a castle window relatively quickly because is what I grew up getting used to doing. Let me just make this a window really quickly so that's out of our way. Now make this a column. That simplifies life a lot. Thank you. So I have a bit of a tough day right now. I just came to US. I am still jet lagged, so this is being a bit rough on me, but that's where I'm heading at. And the other part is, how do you get around to accessing the other side? So that's why we could carve these little slits that would allow access to the other side. I'll honestly go with the Blackstone stair. Blackstone stairs. I am aware there is ancient debris just chilling there. This works. Now I just realized this interferes. We'll use these. That's better. What's I doing? I was like, yeah, I'm going to design everything today. And when I sit down, my mind just runs blank, completely blank. That's how I feel today. I'm sorry. Here we go. We have the different exhibits here. And which window should I build next? I want to build the City Hall window. Speaking of windows, I managed to put up a cheat sheet of all of the windows. My main concern right now is honestly that some windows are supposed to be viewed with a frame. And the frame is annoying because I do not have space for a frame, or do I? I probably do have space. I mean, I could let you make a frame on top of this. Sure, I guess. But then if I make a frame, I ought to make a frame for everything else. So then that becomes a pain in the head. I am looking at my cheat sheet right now. How wide is this? It's only 4 wide. I am very surprised. Let's do this. I have something that's 4 wide. Maybe it's circular of sorts. So there's this top part, and then if I go down 2 blocks, okay, I need temporary blocks. If I bridge out, then that works. So we got there a circular window. That's basically the gist of the City Hall window. So that's included. Which else window was classic? We could do we could just come up with a few designs off the bat by now because I think that's the easiest way forward. We can then reuse some of these designs in a later build, so that's a win-win. Since I'm a lazy person, I'm just gonna do the 4-wide version. So there's that. That looks nice. That actually looks good. What else do I have? I'm going to do a few designs impromptu. I want something that has one big middle section that branches off into 2 separate sections. Gonna scratch my head on this one. It's actually a 3 window. Which makes it really cool. And we got a wee little amount of depth with the walls. So I'm super happy with this design. This might appear in a future build. I don't know what build. I think probably be like the houses of the architect or the monastery. This is TBD. And we have 2 more builds. So let's just walk through these. What do I want? I want 4 small panels with a big thing in the middle. And please don't make a perfect circle. I mean, it's gonna be 6 tall, but who cares, honestly. It's honestly a cool design. And then we are running short of direct. So let's grab some more direct stairs, shall we? These are always popular. Not the last design. So I feel like people could be very curious about my brainstorming process. Of how on earth I do what I do. So I am demonstrating my entire, honest, unedited process for you. I hope this is helpful. This is like a heart shape, I think. With a conventional window. I actually kind of like this. I will honestly say that I like this one. So we did something productive. So that's really nice. We got a new window shape. That's our new favorite. So that's really nice. And the second part would be to try to figure out their framing, but we'll sleep first. It's a new day. It's not framed, and this one. So how on earth do you frame it? I forgot. I honestly forgot. It's 2 stairs in the middle. No, it's not. It's a pillar with 2 walls. That's complicated. This is testing my memory to its limits. Thank you. The pillar with 2 walls. so we'll have to go afterwards. How do I frame the downtown? No, you do not really frame it. Okay, very interesting. Since it's just this that needs a frame, I'm not gonna frame it because framing is logistically chaotic. It might not even look that nice given we're in such a restricted area. So now I'm gonna cue the time lapse because we decided to do all the externals the traditional way. So we have the special arches inside here. So let me terraform this place as well and let us see it together. episode's worth of building is officially done, I will show you through what we have built. Well, this part is not done, but that's already a very long episode. So here it is. This is the gallery room, and the upper floor will be filled in the near future because I can't think of that many ideas of what to fill over here. But there's a big second floor that's readily available for more content. And then if we come over here, we would see a huge building. So let us go up a floor. This will be the research building for the architects, because why not? So this is the main tower, and this is just like a little break room kind of little thing with direct view to see what they have made. So this stair will bring us up here, which is a smaller kind of like a storage room place, and we can go even higher. We can go up here and there'll be a little like breezeway gallery type room. So this is what happened in this episode. I'm super excited to see you all on the next one. This will be bye for now.